Welcome, everybody, to this edition of Attention Talk Video. I'm your host, ADHD and Attention Coach Jeff Copper. Our topic today is the execution of intentions and resolutions. This is a special edition for us. Typically, our videos, we try to keep them like 3 to 5 minutes for content-wise, but every once in a while, we run into a topic that's going to run long. So this is about 30 minutes or so. But I really want to emphasize this because I had two individuals that I've known over the years that share with the experience, and we're going to talk about their lived experience and movement. I want to vividly illustrate what transpired really kind of by accident, but talk about why it's worked the way it is so people can plan it. So this was done pre-taped here, and we're going to just roll the tape. So here you go. Hope you enjoy it. Doc and Doug, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Hey, thanks. Yes, this is awesome.
For our listeners out there, this show is very unique for me. We're doing this kind of, we're going to do a video version and a radio version kind of at the same time. And this is very near and dear to my heart because I think a lot of people go out there and they don't, often things are not working. They're having a hard time getting something done, as I say, because you're paying attention to the wrong thing. The one thing that I've learned with people with ADHD, anything that's repetitive, boring, and routine typically is something that's difficult for them to execute on a consistent and regular basis. I do a lot of talking about my own experience as an athlete. Exercise, I used to swim for 4 hours a day. Since I graduated from college, I've had workout partners since 1988. And we're going to talk more about that in a second, but I want to illustrate how you actually do some of the things that you have a challenge to do. And we're going to be centered a little bit around exercise. So I want to begin with, let's start with you, Doug. You guys kind of came together and stumbled across something like the couch to 5K on Zoom. What was that?
So this is something that at the time, both Doc and I were heavily involved in ADA. Adults with Attention Deficit Association, and a mutual friend started up a Couch 5K program. And it was really going to be a pilot, 3 months, and just to get people to start, really some of them to actually do a 5K. But what we quickly realized is that it just really was about movement and having somebody lead, and we would jump in and do a Zoom. So I was doing that for a couple of maybe a month or so, but talking to Doc every day about it, and he seemed real interested in it. And I'll pause and let him tell how he got into it, because it was kind of fascinating, because we're doing this running stuff. And Doc, take it away.
Well, I have cerebral palsy. I walk like a flamingo, except the knees go the other way. It's kind of dramatic. And so there was no way I was going to do a 5K. That wasn't going to happen. But I've came to the realization that I needed to exercise. I hate exercise because primarily inattentive ADD, we don't like to move. Cerebral palsy, don't like to move. So I needed help. I needed something outside of myself. I realized I wasn't going to do it. And they were talking about this 5K thing, and there was such energy in that. And it was really interesting. It was not something I'd ever really experienced before. And I remember being very, very apologetic and asking permission. Hey, you guys are doing this thing, and I know that I'm not doing a 5K, but I've got like an exercise bike, and so maybe could I sit at the big, at the adult table? And that's kind of what it felt. And all of them went, yeah, sure, come along. Mm-hmm. And it was fantastic.
Mm.
Well,
yeah, go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, so and then that where he came in is that really we realized it was about movement. It wasn't exercise. It was that we were together in movement.
What I think that I had understood before we did this is both of you neither really like exercise. It's not something that you're normally attracted to.
Oh, boring, right?
Yeah.
I have a hate-hate relationship with exercise.
Oh, I hear about these people that do swimming, and it sounds like they kill me, right? And I was on the swim team. I remember how hard it was to do that thing in the water, repetitive. it didn't speak to me. And yet hearing these other people go, oh, I get this endorphin high out of doing this. And I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't understand that at all. It makes zero sense to me.
I'm having a flashback. Back in college in the summertime, I swam at an outdoor pool. It was 10 lanes, 50 meters. And every 10 days, we had to do a 3,000 backstroke for time, basically take about an hour. All I'm doing is staring up into the clouds. Every once in a while, you see backstroke flags. Oh my God, the boringness of it all. Back in those days, I could do it. But the reason I'm highlighting this is some people kind of like exercise. I want to exercise, but you guys really kind of loathe it. And I'm highlighting that because that's kind of special here because the topic today is actually activating on things that are actually good for you. So what's interesting to me is the precipice is this Couch to 5K. There's a community that you guys kind of joined and made it social. Can you tell me about your experience with that, Doug?
Yeah, well, it was really that thing where we were going to decide that how do we make a space for others to try this. So the person leading it was a runner, and I was just to be a co-host and do this and stand up and make that space. So I'm like, well, if I have to do this to support others, right? Even though exciting to me, no, I didn't feel like a 5K was in my future, but that space, and of course, what again, reinforce that I will do things for others that I won't do for myself, but yet standing up and making space for others allowed me to do it myself. And having this social component, we would jump on Zoom, right? Everybody would be on Zoom. Some
3 days a week
be, with video, but most of the time just audio, so that somebody was talking and you weren't alone. And then we would talk afterwards and have occasional meetings just to kind of go through experience. And beforehand we had a couple of meetings to kind of just get us prepped, right? To remove the resistance of the actual activation, like lay your clothes out. First of all, go get all the clothes you're going to get and identify them, and then put them into place and get some stuff pre-staged so that when you are ready to do the thing, you weren't busy chasing all the pieces. You were actually ready to do that. So that was super helpful in the beginning, but then it was actually the community and showing up every time. And it was super cool. Some people actually did the 5K. I did not. And then it ran out. So it was really just a pilot, 3 months.
So, we're transition, but I like what it's a community. We're talking about, is this exercise or movement? But I'm hearing community, and it's starting to come in louder and clear. So that had a beginning and an end. But then you guys ended up continuous. Tell us about that. Doc, you want to start?
We got toward the end of this thing, and we were seeing benefits to us that wow, who knew exercise could be a good thing? Why didn't anyone tell us this before? and it was valuable to us. And Doug and I had pretty strong friendship going back a little ways. And we decided, you know what, we could just do this, me and you on Zoom in the morning, and just keep going. And so instead of coming up with reasons to do it, we just didn't come up with reasons not to. And we just did it. And it continued, and it kept continuing, and then we stepped it up to 5 days a week, which that just blew my mind. And now we're doing 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday.
I'm confused. You're doing this 6 days a week, but you don't like exercise, and you don't like movement.
I love getting together with Doug in the morning and being silly.
Yeah.
And realize that we don't start with the exercise. There is a ritual to the way we do this that is really important for how we engage. And we have kind of organically adopted roles to make this work. I am up earlier, so I will find something silly and either text a GIF or, about where my brain is this morning, or some silly picture or an internet thing or a joke, or and we will throw silliness back and forth by text for, a few minutes. And then Doug gets on and we continue making bad jokes at each other, and we start moving down our collective roads. I'm on my exercise bike, or I've got a suspension gym I use. It's whatever we need to be doing, and we'll complain about our day and get that out of our system for 5 or 10 minutes, and then we're in a much better headspace.
It's funny. It's kind of like this, like the dopamine warm up. Let's like laugh and joke a little bit before this all happens.
Yes.
So.
Yes.
Absolutely. And that that whatever he sends me to start it off is also a reminder, right? To make sure, and it kind of a cue knowing that this is coming up. So it really reinforces that. And since our timing is that it's usually 8 o'clock in the morning for Doc and 6 o'clock in the morning for me, I'm in LA.
I'm in St. Louis.
That I'm just waking up. So it's come to be my morning wake up routine. This idea where I'm basically going from asleep in 20 minutes to being out the door, and a completely different way of waking up. Because before I would be picking up my phone and doom scrolling and looking at whatever, and being predispositioned by a lot of the negative things happening right when my brain's waking up. So now I've circumvented it. That's not actually even a part of it. I have this thing joking, get ready, get out. And what a difference that makes for me, just in the waking up process.
We're talking about that kind of dopamine warm up when you guys kind of get together. And again, Doc, you're in St. Louis, and Doug, you're in California. So there's a time zone difference. What time of day are you guys coming together on Zoom?
8 o'clock my time, 6 a.m. for Doug.
Okay. And so when you get on, can you just tell us about the routine that you go through? You have the dopamine warm up, you guys start talking, and then Doug, you go for a walk, and Doc, you do various things in your house. Is that right?
Correct.
Tell us about the conversations and kind of what transpires, like a day, a morning in the life of you guys moving.
The big thing that really makes this accessible in ways that other things don't is we start in a state of play. That is incredibly important. And it takes something like 400 repetitions to create a new neural pathway, unless you're in a state of play, and then it takes something stupidly small like 25 or 30. So play is really important for ADHD brains, and it makes it safe, and it makes it something that we can do, and it makes it something that is accessible, and this is not unobtainium. This is not, we're going to go exercise with a capital E. It's some silly texts, Doug's wake up call, and then we get together by phone, and the conversation continues. And as Doug's going up the hill and I'm on my exercise bike, we talk about whatever we're doing and wherever we are. And the fantastic thing that has come out of this, and I'll let Doug take this, is how many other things this has allowed us to access.
Yeah, I think that's a great thing to talk about, but I'll pause for that because I think Jeff might have some questions about that. Just really my mindset, because I'm just waking up. A lot of times I walk out the door and it's right now it's chilly. It's not super cold, but in the 30s. I'm kind of crabby still, right? I'm still that wake up, kind of crabby, not really there. And it's what's amazing is part of that first 10 minutes is that even a reset to not being crabby, not being super happy, but just kind of a baseline different, because that we're chatting about stuff. So what we might be talking about is, hey, ADHD is something that we're exploring, we're leaning in, we're trying to be our best self. So a lot of times we'll be talking about something along those lines. Or another great thing that happens is we'll actually talk about the day before. And what happens is that, from my perspective, is often I'll say the highlight of the day before about things that happen, and the highlights are kind of negative. That flight, fight, or freeze that I'm looking at. Oh, what was the day like? And I'm keying in on the negatives. But we talk through kind of that thing, and what is amazing is that I'll hear myself say these things that happened, and I'll realize, wait a second, there's actually a lot of great things that happen. So what helps me is, in this process, is often I'll revisit what happened before and cement in a different meaning about my previous day, and that steers me differently about how the rest of my day is going to go today. And before I didn't do that reflective thing. So people say to journal, and this
Mm-hmm.
kind of acts like a journaling thing where I get to tell a story to somebody, and it's really for myself, and have somebody, help me reframe it, help
Yep.
reinforce somebody does great things,
Yes.
and that what it completely changes my day moving
Yep.
forward by revisiting that, instead of what I used to do, wake up,
And
think about the day before, key off that negative thing,
yep.
and then look for that negative in the next thing.
Yep.
And having that reprogramming, because of me telling
Yep.
my story, huge difference.
I love how you guys are describing it for our regular listeners that listen to me a long time. I talk a lot about Dr. Barkley's executive functioning model, and I'm going to have a show after this show kind of talking through what we're talking about now, but from an executive functioning perspective. And a little tip to that is basically part of thinking, working memory is the booting up process and the thinking through stuff. And often people with ADHD, they need to actually say the words out loud. It's funny because I'm hearing that you're kind of talking about your day. I think reflecting back on yesterday, kind of warming your brain up for the day. You have the dopamine warm up to get your kind of brain ignited, but there's actually some thinking kind of going on. It looks like you guys are just two friends on Zoom, kind of getting something done. But I'm starting to hear there's a lot more happening, a lot more thinking, a lot more, maybe even problem solving, sharing thoughts and ideas. Do you guys actually find yourself sometimes getting into just the troubles of the day and helping each other with that?
Yes. Yes. That a big piece of what we do is giving each of us space so that our ADHD brains can get past the feelings we have around all of these
Yep.
things so that we can then process on them, because ADHD is such a feelings first existence so often that we get to process through the feelings. And once we've kind of moved those aside and they're no longer, occupying our entire sight line, then we get to really dig into what things mean and explore things and talk about things without shame and celebrate, anchor, all of these things. This is vitally important space. We get to get past the feelings so we can actually make choices instead of just being swept along on the reactive wave.
Yeah. So I want to stop here for a second. Here's two guys that arguably don't even like movement. that all of a sudden get into this, and they're doing it 6 days a week, and you've been doing it together for a year and a half now.
Yeah,
And
we did like
Yep.
150 times last year, and Doug said we just crossed, what was it, 215 this year?
yeah,
Yeah. 215 was this morning. Yep.
And you guys sound like you look forward to this every day. Like this
I
doesn't
get
make
to
any
spend
sense.
time with my best friend.
Oh, yeah, that we do look forward to it. And in fact, this is something that we actually had to lay some ground rules down, Jeff, which if you would have said this 2 years ago to either one of us, we would have said, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
That
what are
is
you
just different
smoking?
language. But the rule that we have now is that there's some mornings where the day requires that we can't do it. Maybe I didn't get enough sleep last night because of work or something, where it's like, this is just not the day to do this. And
Self-care has the right of way.
right, yeah, self-care is the right away. And this thing that we every time I ask, say, hey, this is not one of those days, and it's infrequent, it feels so weird to not be doing it. Everything is driven to showing up, and I feel actually guilty about not being there. And at first it was guilty for him, but it's guilty for me too, because what we get, they're so powerful, and it's like, wait a second, today is not that day, and yet compelled almost to do it. And I just can't believe, looking back 2 years ago, there's no way.
One of the things I share is I'll never forget. I was out of college. I'm living in New York City, and I had a friend that we would swim in the morning. We used to swim at the Newark Athletic Club, but he worked at Brown Brothers Harriman, and a lot of times he's an investment banker, and sometimes he would have to pull all-nighters. And I was a sales guy at different times, and I had different functions. And the way we did it every day was during the week, it's a standing thing. We're going to go swim tomorrow at 6 o'clock. And the idea really was is your alarm would go off, and you'd pick up the phone. Right? Both alarms going off at the same time. So the phone's going to ring or whatever, and you'd pick it up. And basically, if you heard a busy signal, then that person is out. So we take the phone off the hook, right? And when you pick up the phone, it was basically you in, you out. That was it. Like, and it was funny because it was, sometimes the phone wouldn't ring, but most times it was going to, right? And so this is a weird dynamic. You pick it up. And then when you started saying the words, are you in, you out? Like some days I was like, oh, I'm just tired today. But when you said you in, you out, or I hear, are you in, you're out? Yeah. And then all of a sudden you're out of bed and you're walking out the door and you're like, what the hell happened, right? But it was funny because I'm actually saying the words, you in or you out or whatever. And then for me, I would walk to, it was like a 25-minute walk. I'd grab my cup of coffee on the way there. And it's kind of another thing. I had to wear a suit, right? Because I would go straight from the pool to work and I get dressed in the dark because I didn't want to fully awake. I wanted to kind of slowly into it. And one day I show up at the work and I got a brown shoe and a black shoe. And so ultimately I ended up buying shoes with texture and socks with texture so I could feel them. They were all black or all brown. I could feel them and tell what it was. It's just these funky little things that you do. But that notion of self-care uses the right of way is that sometimes we would be out, but we had our own little boot up thing and kind of this normative rules that we had as we kind of went forward. Now, we were on the topic that you guys had ground rules in place, and you talked about one. And I want to let you guys continue. And also, Doc, you were going to say something a second ago.
Well, a big piece of this, and Doug talked about how weird it feels to not do this, is as ADHDers, we also often have kind of a love-hate relationship with routine and structure. It is something that we need, but structure very often feels like a prison. And that as soon as it's there, we want to escape it anywhere else. And that we realized at one point that this structure is either a prison or a fortress. A prison keeps you in, a fortress keeps bad things out. And that if you try to impose structure on me, I'm going to fight it because the whole ODD coexistent conditions. My inner toddler brain goes, no. But if that structure, if that routine gives me comfort, you can have it when you can pry it from my cold, dead fingers. Mm-hmm. And this has become a comfort routine. Mm-hmm. So we own it. Mm-hmm. That's the difference.
And is it a comfort routine or is it now something you look forward to?
Yes. I'm going to go E, all of the above.
Yeah, and myself, we did our walk this morning and had to get up earlier so that we could be on here today, and that was even tougher for me. But it was last night when we were talking about how we're going to run our day. I said this is so important, and it allows me to wake up. So for me, it's kind of like my anchor of my 24-hour cycle. Mm-hmm. It is the thing that helps me reboot and do things during the day, but it's also strangely allowed me to really tap into improving my sleep quality. When do I go to bed? Because I'm going to get up this time every day, and mm-hmm. it's that important. And I mm-hmm. don't want to sell that short. So now I start thinking about how do I start moving things around and prioritizing for this mm-hmm. versus what was before basically my day job. Yep. That was the existential crisis. Everything revolved around it. Everything else kind of in service or not of that. And mm-hmm. now I'm going, no, the most important thing is this thing. And then I start fitting other things in, which I wasn't able to access before. And that has allowed me to do a lot more things about what are priorities for me, what routines, how to even think about doing habits. And I know that every time I think that, I should do this habit, right? That I don't do it because that should is somebody else's list or somebody else's idea. But we have now this experience of doing something and then making community, making this dopamine happen beforehand, that I can start applying it to other things. And boy, that was a revelation because I didn't have any experience. It was always try to do it. It was somebody else's list, the should. I wasn't owning it. It was hard and did it a few times and, it didn't work. Like meditation's one of them. My joke about meditation is I tried that once and it didn't work. Well, of course it didn't work. You have to do it more than once. So this thing where we did it enough is like, this is how it worked for me to start doing the things I really want to do that I couldn't have access before.
So I want to kind of go, Brett Thornhill interviewing him years ago, and he talks about non-med meds, meditation, exercise, diet, and sleep. And I've also
Yes.
interviewed Dr. John Rady. If we could put exercise in a pill, it would be the AD drug of the century. And I want to kind of root this for a second, because we started this up. The purpose of this discussion is a lived experience. And for people to begin to understand, you're paying attention to the wrong thing. The just do it is not an effective strategy. Because if you're starting to listen to Doc and Doug, this is friendship, this is community, this is this shiny thing that's there. Exercise is a byproduct, or movement is a byproduct of what's really going on. It's not really what's primary. And I really want to highlight this, because we've got this thing that neither one of them like to do, that they've been doing for a year and a half, 6 times, and they're looking forward to it. Because when you exercise or move on a regular basis, it makes it easier for you to sleep. It relieves stress and tension. It's a natural thing. And so it makes everything else really that much easier. And I am going to do a show after this. It's basically understanding this from an executive functioning perspective. And I like how the guys are sharing it, but you're talking about this as routine and stuff like that. At the end of the day, they're excited about doing this. And the point of this, and the reason I wanted to do this show, and the reason we're releasing at the beginning of the video, is we have our resolutions. It's more than just, I'm going to do this. You've got to immerse yourself in the experience. Make it something that you're excited about. And I think both have described this. And I know for our video viewers right now, if you're looking at Doug, the background that he's got is actually a picture that he took one morning when he was out on one of the Zoom calls. And I said, you got to put that thing up there, because it's very, very symbolic. And so at the end of the day, I really want to hammer home, if you want to execute these things that you're really looking to do, it requires a little bit, make it a little bit fun. And I want each of you guys to share your comments on this. But again, the focus really isn't as much on movement, it is community. And look at all the great stuff that's happening. Doug, you want to, Doc, go ahead.
I'm going to give you the ugly truth of how it really works, is that I know all the reasons I should exercise: quality of life,
yep,
and movement, and that 50% of adults with CP are non-ambulatory by the time they become adults, and muscle mass, and all of these things. There's all of these reasons, yep, I should exercise. Yep. I don't care about any of those. Yep. Those don't motivate me, because they're not in the moment. That's future self. And yep, future self and I, we know each other. We wave to each other in the hall, but I mean, we're acquaintances at best. But what will get me out to move is the shiny thing of the moment, the thing that is sparkly, the thing that matters to me, my best friend, someone needs me. One of the biggest reasons I have for exercising is I love to take pictures. And for me, putting a camera in my hand and being able to get down low and up high and move and not fall over and all of these things, that's what I'm exercising for. Not for these quality of life issues, but for these very, very immediate payoffs. It just, the other stuff comes along for the ride.
Absolutely.
Doug? And I'd like to just jump in and ride that a little bit, is that, you see the picture in my background. One of the things that I noticed that, I have the hill is about 550 vertical feet that I walk. So it's strenuous, right? At the pace I normally take. But it's often pretty dark when I get up now, especially this time of year. And I'll look and I'll go, oh, the light, there's clouds and stuff. It's just not blue sky. And I like, oh, what I find myself doing, Jeff, this just blows me away, is that I will work the hardest to get to the top of the hill so I can take this picture thing, because I love photography also, that it completely changes my pace. And Doc will be talking to me, and all of a sudden, all I'll be doing is huffing. I would never do that. And I mean,
he
I'm
is
literally
motoring up that hill to get that picture.
to be able to get that, again, because of the dopamine, the thing in the moment, the thing that interests me in the service of it is actually to get there, the exercise. And it hurts at the moment, but either because I'm talking to him, I forget completely that it does, or that goal to get there, again, that shiny moment right then and there to get that thing, makes it so I get even better movement. That, again, would never imagine that is, but it's about right now, this horizon that he talks about, this future self and benefit. I mean, it's a should
Yeah,
list.
screw what should motivate
Yep.
you. Find
Abs-
what does.
Yeah, and
Yes,
it's-
yes. It's not what you should do, it's what you will do. And you guys will do this in community. You might not exercise on your own, but you will do that. And that I talk a lot about.
Now, there's the thing, Jeff, is that when one or the other of us misses, usually the other one is out exercising.
Yep.
Now we do.
Yeah.
And before we would never do. If someone bagged out, like you said, had not, it's like, oh, okay, it's one of those days. Now we will do it ourselves. I will do this walk. He will do the stretching and stuff. And that is also mind blowing because, again,
I'm with you. My question to you is, if one of you got hit by a bus and couldn't do it, how long do you think you would continue to do it by yourself?
not long by myself. I would find
Not long. No,
with.
I'd be looking for someone else.
The reason
Absolutely.
I'm bringing this up is, as I said, I've had a workout partner since 1988. In the early 90s, I competed for the New York Athletic Club. They paid me to go up there and do some stuff. But anyway, I moved down to Tampa, and I had to start to train at a time of year and swim when nobody was around. And I could actually work out by myself for about 3 weeks. But that was it. I mean, that was because I had a goal-oriented thing and I had made a commitment. I was going to get paid. I was going up there to see some friends, which is more than normal. But I'm sharing this with everybody that really anchor this, and I'm really glad. And so at the end of the day, you do this with people. You look forward to it. You can do it on your own a little bit. But the reason this is working isn't because you have to exercise or you need to exercise. It's because you've designed an environment that you look forward to going to, and it's not only just friendship. And we'll talk more about this in the next show about executive function, about the other things that it's bringing to the table that actually is helping you think through the day. And so it's a powerful thing. And I'm really glad you guys agreed to come on the show and share your personal experience, because this is what activation really looks like. Sustained long-term activation. And I'm so grateful. And so, Doc, thank you so much for coming on the show.
My pleasure.
Doug, same thing as you.
Oh, I'm really glad to be able to share this story. And again, this is kind of get a little meta about it. This, again, is for Doc and I to remember why we do this, because we have imperfect memories and we forget. So this reinforcement, oh yeah, I got that thing. Well, I want that again, right? And to keep reinforcing the things we get out of it, and we do that through community and through sharing and being ourselves. And sometimes saying the ugly, like, oh, I don't feel like it, and then we support each other, and then magically through that support, we keep doing it.
Absolutely.
And then we now have a chance to look back at these breadcrumbs of my count, because I'm counting, and seeing like, we actually did it this many times this year. That's amazing. And again, it's not about tracking for tracking's sake so we can plan. It's just more of remembering that this works for us, because we might forget in the next 24 hours.
Absolutely. Well, again,
so Jeff,
I
would like to point to something that you said that is really important, because here's Doug and I, exercise is that thing, and we've found a way to access that. And that, if it wasn't the two of us doing it together, we wouldn't be able to do it by ourselves. Okay. These are two guys that wouldn't exercise by yourselves. You have a history of exercise. You have a long history of exercise, and you are connected with how important it is. Exercise is not unobtainium for you. And yet what came out of your mouth was, if I did it by myself, I wouldn't be able to do it for more than about 3 weeks.
I'm no different from you guys. You guys don't like exercise. I like exercise, but at the end of the day, the experience is the same. It's really difficult. There are some anomalies of people that can do it, but the majority of people out there, like 80%, are falling in our bucket. And I'm comparing and contrasting this because I did it for a really long time, but I know it's all about people. Swimming is very social. You go away for a meet. I might swim like one day for 2 1-minute swims, but the rest of the time I'm playing cards, I'm socializing. It's all about the connection and the people that's really kind of going on. And so I'm glad you brought that up, Doc, because literally, when it comes to it, I'm no different than you are, because it's swimming around a black line or looking at the clouds for a couple hours is just god awful boring.
But see, this is what ADHDers do, is we have this view of, oh, Jeff swims. Well, he's naturally motivated. I could never do that. And so to pull back the curtain and say, no, this is really what it takes. And it's okay that that's what it takes. This is what makes this stuff accessible for ADHDers is telling the truth about it.
So that's what enables. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on the show. Everybody, you got to go check out their websites, myneonbrain.com. Again, myneonbrain.com and coachingforcreativebrains.com. So we hope you've enjoyed this edition of Attention Talk Video. If you're new to our channel, please hit the subscribe button at the bottom. We release videos each week, typically a lot shorter than this. Also, if you're a regular listener, what do you think of this? Does this make sense? Do you have a similar story? Also, what we do is for you. We certainly like those that want to support our channel by hitting the likes button. It's very valuable for us and very motivated. So if that's something you consider, we appreciate it. With that, we hope you've enjoyed this edition of Attention Talk Video. Take care.